Is now in the conference. Is now in the conference.
Hello, Malcolm.
Joe.
Hey. Pleasure to meet you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Absolutely, yeah. Good to meet you too.
I knew your father. I met him once, but I managed Jimmy Miller, the Rolling Stones producer.
Oh, amazing.
And he knew Jack really well. And I don't know if you've seen on allmusic.com, I've written extensively about Jack Bruce.
I haven't, but I did recognize your name, so I'll check that out. Allmusic.com.
Right. I'm going to send you the link after our conversation to your Facebook page.
Okay. Fantastic.
I'm very impressed with the record.
That's
being
so
a
cool.
long time.
So Jimmy is a legend, man. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah, I was his manager for years. I was the A&R man for New Rose Records in Paris. And Jimmy had produced Johnny Thunders from the New York Dolls.
Yes.
And so I negotiated the deal, and it was our biggest selling record of 1983.
Wow.
And within 3 weeks, I became Jimmy's manager. He liked me. I'm going to talk about you. I want to talk about you, but I'll just give you the thumbnail sketch. Jimmy brings me to meet Keith Richards, 1988. Keith introduces me to Rob Fraboni because he liked what I was doing with Jimmy. And Rob and I have been working together 35 years.
Wow.
So, but that's a little about the interviewer. I want to hear about you, and I want to say this record is amazing.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a long time coming. We actually started it, I guess, at the end of 2017. We recorded in 2018. So, yeah, it's been like 5 years, I guess. We're completely different people now. No, I mean, I'm so glad it's coming out. And obviously it's become a little bit of a historical document because quite a few of the people that were on the record have passed away since then. Most recently, Bernie Marsden and Pete Brown, and obviously Ginger at the 2019, I think it was, and Pee Wee Ellis has passed away. So yes, it's a really nice thing that it's coming out. I think we're all really proud of it.
As a record reviewer, if you will, I think it's really important for the Cream catalog because A, it's an acoustic tribute, which is novel.
Yeah.
B, their catalog hasn't been given its due. The way the Beatles and the Stones, their songs are all over the place. I think Cream really deserves more cover songs because they were very influential and very important. So much fun. The band was fun.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've actually toured with Ginger's son Kofi a little bit over the years and played the music, and it is an incredible kind of collective experience to play that stuff live with an audience. It is really special, and I think part of that is the improvisational nature of it, where you can just really stretch out the material. And that's quite rare. I mean, I guess you've got that in the Grateful Dead and maybe a few other bands, but Cream did that in a particular way that was very driving and very innovative, and of course their musicianship really helped that. So, there's a lot, as you say, there's a lot going for it, and it could be out there more. But then, having said that, I would say that about my dad's music as well. He's got a whole body of work that is not as well known as I think it should be, for whatever reason. Maybe he didn't play the game, the commercial game, in as well as other people refuse to at times, I guess. I don't know. It's complicated.
Well, I've found with certain musicians, they're into the art. And to me, the Jack Bruce albums, which are so great, is an artist doing his Van Gogh work. And, Van Gogh had his brother, Theo Van Gogh, as his manager. And without Theo, we might not have had Vincent. So, and Jack Bruce was a superstar. He was in Cream. And I was in like the third row for West Bruce and Lang. I loved Mountain. So when I was in college, I would like walk down the street. You can get tickets for like $3.50, $4.50, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm 19, and I'd walk down the street to the Orpheum Theater, and I'd get like third row for West Bruce and Lang, and there's, Jack, and there's Leslie, and it was Corky. And it was just amazing being that age and observing that music right in front.
Yeah.
And,
well, I mean, I actually got to play with Leslie and Corky. We did a bunch of shows in 2009, so that was kind of interesting to play with those guys. Yeah, I mean, I think you made a really good point. Like, being an artist is not necessarily the same as being commercially successful, and so you need people around you that are going to support that process and understand that process. And I think, for whatever reason, we're in a different time now in the industry. There's less of that going on. Maybe it's because money is scarcer or something, or it's more corporatized or whatever. There's more people relying on it being successful financially if they're to get behind it, rather than it just being art, it being somebody actually being creative. And so there's a lot of things are limited in that sense. You can't do that. You're not supposed to do that. No, it's got to be in this format instead of true creativity, which is expansive. And I think, it is one of the challenges of being an actual artist, as opposed to just somebody that's joining the dots. And so, yes, it's a very interesting time, I would say, right now on the planet from all perspectives.
Well, you had Eric Clapton going to Delaney and Bonnie, and then veering off and doing his commercial things. And when Fraboni had a hit with Eric, it was Hello Old Friend. Rob Fraboni co-produced that. And so Eric was going into different directions that were commercial. Whereas John Cale of the Velvet Underground, which major band, Lou Reed became very famous. Yet John Cale, like Jack Bruce, did the art. They do the art. And that was their thing.
Yeah.
Just my opinion.
So I guess it's fine. Yeah, no, I love great pop music. I mean, it's not that I'm against it, but it is interesting how that works out. And so in the grand scheme of things, artists can sometimes be less well known, even though the music is just as valid. It's just a different kind of validity, I suppose. It's less radio friendly, or according to the people that dictate what is radio friendly. It's just interesting, yeah. But I suppose it's always been like that in popular culture.
One of the, outside of YouTube, which Mick Jagger and Elton John are using YouTube the way I grew up in the 60s with AM radio. And I'm noticing that Jagger and Elton John and others are using the YouTube. I mean, Jagger's putting the unreleased tracks out first, and it's like, wow, he would never have done that 30 years ago. But it's like a radio station, and the Stones fans are going to buy the product anyway. So I find that interesting, but I think, take Theme from an Imaginary Western. You get that in a movie, the new version, and now you've got a new radio system, the movies. And that would be a brilliant song for a movie, I think.
Oh, yeah, it's a great song. It's one of, I think it's one of the best songs that my dad and Pete Brown wrote together. Obviously, people know the Mountain version, probably know that version better in the US for sure. But yes, I mean, getting placements in movies and on TV, all of those things can be really useful these days as we kind of, it's sort of decentralized in a way, isn't it? Like, how do you get music heard? It's not quite as clear cut as it used to be, which may or may not be a good thing. I think there's such great music out there, but it's just a question of finding it. And now we have algorithms on Spotify and whatever. So, yeah, it's an interesting time.
Well, musicians almost have to go critical mass with lots of live shows merchandising, and then getting so much stuff on YouTube that no one can get away from them. And that's work.
Well, it's money as well, isn't it? I mean, I think it takes advertising budgets, you know, and so the grassroots level, you know, the idea that you could be a band and just be a great band and with great music and then build up a fan base over time, that's really, really tough. And I think behind every success story these days is a lot of money that gives that band a leg up in the industry, because I'm not sure that you can do that. You know, I'm not sure that you can play your local shows and suddenly you're a national touring act. You know, it's definitely a challenge right now. Having said that, I think it's wide open as well. I mean, anything can happen as well. You know, it just depends on the intention. But I think money helps, certainly in this industry.
Well, there's quirky things with YouTube, like 1 pound fish. Do you know that story?
Yes, I do.
And,
wasn't that a British guy?
know,
Wasn't that like that was a British thing, right?
well, he was a Pakistani guy with his family in Pakistan, and he was in Britain selling fish. And as legend has it, the owner didn't like the way he was, you know, talking to everyone, so he started singing to them, and someone videotaped it. I mean, if you can believe the legend. But I kind of believe it, and it went wild on YouTube.
Well, there was the other one called Charlie Bit My Finger. That was a little earlier, right?
I don't remember that one.
Well, it was just a baby and his sort of 3-year-old brother, and he goes, Charlie, ow, Charlie bit my finger, something like that. It was just like some random video that somebody posted on YouTube, and then people started setting it to music and doing like different versions of it, and it just became this viral thing that had, you know, 3 billion hits on YouTube. It was insane, you know, and it wasn't predicted. It was just something that kind of grew organically.
Well, there's some folk singer now who was obscure, and he had like a right-wing song. The right-wingers in America, you know, the MAGA
song,
crowd, yeah. and it's like phenomenal numbers.
Yeah.
And where I do this radio show and I talk to Tom Rush, you know, Tom Rush is the great folk singer from the Boston area.
Yeah.
And he was just on the show again, and Everclear. And sure, Everclear is putting people in the rooms, and I just talked to Art. But you see them working hard. I mean, Rush is 82, and he's got like about 12 gigs on his calendar, if you look. It's amazing, right? And then someone out of nowhere who doesn't have the legendary status of a Tom Rush, they get more hits than he does. I think it's troubling, but it's the world.
Well, I mean, I think it's a world of music consultants. You know, you hire a guy in that has an understanding of how the internet works and how algorithms work and how to play the system and how to get likes and follows on all the various social media platforms and how to use advertising on those platforms. But it's sort of branding now. It's not about the music or the art. That's almost secondary. It's about, as you say, like, that's kind of a clever idea. If you go, okay, I'm going to do a song, a right-wing song, you're obviously going to cut out the Democrat demographic, you know, but you might sell it to the right-wing people in that particular country, and there's probably a few 100 million of them. So you've kind of got a big market, but then you're not expressing a universal language anymore. You're kind of becoming prejudiced. I mean, I'm not making judgment on that, but you know, that's the thing. It's branding. Like, the song could be anything. He could have written 100 songs with a similar theme, but it's based on who he's selling it to, right? It's not based on something that everybody can relate to, because not everybody is going to think like that. So,
well, he claims that he claims that they hijacked it from him, that he didn't want that, and that wasn't his intent. I don't know. But I have a lot of questions for you, And the first one is, we do a thing. We've been doing it since 1991. The demo that got the deal. Was there a demo for Bruce S. Quarto?
I don't think there was I think, well, we did do some early sessions not in Abbey Road. We did them in Sensible Music. That's a place that's owned by a wonderful guy called Jeff Allen, who's a drummer, been around forever, played with Tina Turner, all kinds of people. But he has a little studio which we did some sessions in and before we went to Abbey Road. So maybe those were sent over to Bruce. But as far as I know, the deal was already in place when we were doing those early sessions. I think Cream themselves were the demo. Let's put it like that. They were already a tried and tested, song machine. And Pete Brown was the instigator of the whole project. So he was talking to Mike Carden, who is A&R at Quarto Valley, and they had a long history together. I'm sure you know better than me, but I think Mike was at Eagle Rock before that, and various other labels. So I think Pete knew him quite well and had worked with him on various things in the past. And he'd approached them about Pete has an actual documentary about his life called White Rooms and Imaginary Westerns, and that's still yet to be released. I think that was why he was talking to Mike initially. And then they came up with the idea of why don't we do a Cream record, an acoustic version of Cream record, and a documentary to go alongside it. So I'm not sure if we made any demos, but we did do those early sessions, and maybe they were still negotiating the deal while that was going on, but I wasn't really party to that. But as far as I knew, we had started making the record and were starting to kind of organize the guests and all of that stuff. So I have a feeling there wasn't an actual demo per se. I think it was more the success of Cream and the fact that we had Pete Brown involved and that we could get Ginger to perform. I think that was enough for them to want to move ahead with it.
Sure. Why not? I mean, really, the talent is amazing.
Yeah.
So those earliest sessions are on the disc?
Yes, I think some of them are, yeah. Some with, I think White Room was done. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I think 2 or 3 or 4 of the songs were done at that studio. It's a lovely little studio, but, obviously that when we got the opportunity to go to Abbey Road, we're not going to turn that down. Let's go to Abbey Road. Because that's a special place to be, when you're making music. So, but yeah, some of those early songs are still on there because Cheryl Elaine is the drummer on White Room, and I remember she was in that studio with us early on. And Mo Foster is playing bass, who also sadly passed away earlier this year. So, and he was in that studio with us, I remember. So yeah,
it makes
a little
documenting
bit of that studio, but mostly in Abbey Road. Sorry.
It makes documenting these musicians so much more important, to know that their work, their vibrations are on the music and still live with us.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I do kind of experience this project in that way. I mean, and I think with the documentary as well, it just becomes a testament or a kind of, historical record of some of these artists. And it was Ginger's final recording session, the 2 days that he came in, I believe, were the last recordings that he ever made. So that became a really special thing, that we actually captured him on film, recording at Abbey Road with Joe Bonamassa and others. And Bernie Marsden just passed away. He's all over the record. And obviously Pete now as well. So yeah. It's something we can treasure in that sense. All those special people that gave so much to music, and now they're not with us in the physical, but they're in there, up there energetically, but also on this wonderful project. So it's good.
Now, I hope you don't feel this is an oddball question, but Pete Brown and Peter Brown with the Beatles. Did they ever work together or meet up?
And I think there's another Peter Brown who's also a producer in the UK that maybe something to do with Sam Brown, the singer, who is related to Joe Brown, the skiffle artist. But anyway, I digress. I'm not sure. That's a good question. I did open up a couple of years ago. I did, or maybe it was a year ago, Pete Brown, Pete Brown, put on a kind of series of nights in at a venue in central London, and he invited me to be the opening act for Arthur Brown, who is his friend. So there's another Brown that I know that I hung out with, and I saw him at Pete's funeral, and we performed at Pete's wake together with all the musicians that loved Pete and had worked with him. So Arthur Brown and Pete Brown were good friends. I'm not sure about Pete Brown and Peter Brown. That's a good question.
Well, Arthur Brown of God of Hellfire fame?
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
I'm sure I reviewed some of his records that weren't very famous on AMG. I'll have to pull those reviews out. Here's a good one for you. Around 1992, Ginger Baker was in Boston. I thought it was 89, but it must have been 92 when Masters of Reality came up.
Yeah.
And he was touring, and what he did was Noel Redding of the Jimi Hendrix Band was in town. And back in 89, my business partner was one of the number one DJs in Boston. There were three big DJs, and Harvey Warfield was one of them. So Ginger comes into the club, O'Brien's, I think it was, and jams with Noel Redding, because it was a Noel Redding gig. And it's on 3-camera video. Norm Gardner taped it. I don't know where Norm is these days, but he taped a 3-camera shoot of Ginger Baker and Noel Redding in Boston doing the Jimi Hendrix and the Cream hits.
Wow.
In this little club. And what I do have is the Noel Redding interview, because Harvey gave me all his interviews. And so I do have that, and I got to hang out with Noel. And I think that's why Ginger knew me well when I saw him again at the Paradise with your dad, because Jack and Ginger were at the Paradise, which I was the booking agent. And
really?
So... yeah, I played there. I have a band, and we were signed to that French label, New Rose. I was the first album artist signed, and that's where I became A&R guy and signed Johnny Thunders and Willie Loco Alexander, and that was, that all evolved out of that. It became a really major independent New Rose with a lot of classic rock artists.
It's not around anymore? Or?
Patrick Mate passed away maybe 5 years ago. And he had sold the label, then resurrected it as Last Call Records. But I was the first album artist he ever signed. He signed someone to a 12-inch, 45 deal. But then he found me, and that's basically, how I got involved with Jimmy Miller and met all these amazing people. And, Jack Bruce calling the house was such a thrill for me. He was looking for Jimmy, but then I'm sure I met your dad at the Paradise show with Ginger, because Ginger recognized me, and I was amazed he did, because I was there at the Noel Redding show. Right. And the Jimmy Miller thing. Jimmy had produced Ginger Baker Air Force. So, but I just wanted you to know that there is a tape out there of Ginger and Noel Redding, and that's got to be one of a kind. Absolutely. Because it was Masters of Reality that were touring, and Ginger just showed up at the Redding gig, and there was no one taping, and there was Harvey, my business partner was the MC, and Noel came up to the station, and I have the Noel Redding interview, that I have. But I digress, but it's just kind of cool stuff.
No, it's amazing. I mean, he ended up living in Ireland, I think, in Cork, County Cork, and my friend Corky Lang had a band with him called Cork with, what's his name, the guitarist from the Spin Doctors, who's a friend of mine. They actually had a band together for a little while called Cork. So yes, No, what an amazing guy. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Jimmy, obviously.
Oh, we all are. We'll get back to Cream, but I'm going to tell you this one. There is a rare Jimi Hendrix tape I found. I have a TV show.
Huh.
And Little Walter DeVenne did the Little Richard box set for Bear Records in Germany, and the Fats Domino, major 50s mastering engineer, who's a dear friend of mine. So I'm interviewing him, and he pulls out the only known tape of Little Richard and Jimi Hendrix in Revere Beach. And on the flip of it is Jimmy backing up Don and Dewey and Maxine Brown and all these legends, because it was the house band. So I brought the Hendrix estate. John McDermott lives in Massachusetts, so I brought him down to Walter's studio, and he's blown away. So right now, there's another tape that might come out that's got Jimi Hendrix and Little Richard, and it opens with the Beatles. I saw her standing there. I've heard it. It's amazing. Yeah. So since you like Jimmy, I'm telling you, there's a tape in the wind. I know where it is because I'm helping the Hendrix estate talk about it.
Well, no, that's cool, man. I mean, I when I was a kid, I got to know Chas Chandler really well because I went to school for a year in London with his son Stepson, who I'm still in touch with. So I used to go and stay with Chas and his then wife Madeline all the time when they were living in Camden Town in London before he moved back up to Newcastle. So yeah, he told me a few stories about Jimmy over the years. And then I was working in Nashville, in Franklin, and I got to work with Little Richard for 2 days himself. So that was a trip.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, that was in 2009 or 2010, I think. That was with my friend Kevin McKendry. I don't know whether you know Kevin, but he was MD for Delbert McClinton, and has a studio down in Franklin, out in the sticks there, and it was actually for a record. I'm not sure if the record ever came out, but I am in touch with the manager. So Dottie, the songwriter Dottie Rambo, I don't know whether you know the story, but she died in a tour bus crash.
No.
The bus driver fell asleep at the wheel, or something went down, and so they put together this record as a tribute to Dottie and all the people that knew her and had played her songs or was around that kind of scene. So there was I didn't get to work with him, but Solomon Burke was on the record. I don't know what happened to the record, but we did a track with Richard in Kevin's studio, and I was assisting with engineering and stuff. So I got to do the, that was great, Richard. Can you just do one more for me? Line, which was funny. But no, he was a lovely guy actually, and he'd been in some kind of car crash at that point, so he was in a wheelchair. And but a very sweet guy. I really liked him. He was really kind to all of us. So yeah, that was an amazing experience actually.
In 1991, he lived at the Hyatt in Los Angeles. And I was there for a convention. And so I'm in the elevator, and who's there but Little Richard? And I said, man, can I have your autograph? And he says, oh, you're around the hotel. I'll see you soon. But I never saw him again. But he was very close friends with my friend Bobby Hebb. Remember the song Sunny?
Oh, yeah.
So Bobby was one of my best friends, and I'm actually his producer for the estate. So I have a whole Bobby Hebb box set. But he'd get on the phone and say, Penniman just called me. It's like, oh, Little Richard, wow. They were very tight. And it's amazing, huh?
He was an amazing talent, really, unprecedented. What he could do with his voice and the diversity of what he did as well. Obviously he's known for those early hits, but he did so many different things, right? I mean, such an interesting character.
So when did you start playing music? I mean, you're in a musical household, right? So what gave you the bug?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was around 5. I was probably playing the piano, and I started having classical piano lessons around that time, which I don't think I continued, but then I started again at the age of 10. And so, yeah, just I was always around music. You know, there were instruments around the house. My dad was always making music, playing music. People would turn up at the house, and, you know, Tony Williams stayed with us. Larry Coryell would stay with us. All a bit before I can remember. I was a bit too young, but all kinds of people he was working with over the years. And music was just in the house all the time. And, you know, part of my relationship with my dad, it was bonding over music. We would jam together, improvise together, talk about music. I'd go to his shows. So I think, you know, by the time I was 8 or 9 and becoming more aware of my own thoughts in that sense, I think I'd already decided this is what I'm going to do. So, yeah. And then from there, I just, well, I'm still, you know, it's a daily thing. I'm studying music. I'm studying jazz. I'm writing opera. I'm writing songs. I play guitar, bass, piano. I sing. So it's just an ongoing development of all of these things, really, in all humility in that sense. And I'm in the middle of making a new record that's going to come out next year. I don't have a deal for it yet, but I've got about 15 songs recorded. I'm writing another 10 at the moment, and I'm going to sort of piece together this record, which I think is going to be really good. So I'm looking to get out on the road sort of back end of next year and find a way to get this out there. So, yeah.
I'd love to review it.
It's an ongoing... Oh, yeah, well, I'll definitely send it to you. It'd be great. Yeah, so it's just an ongoing development, really, constantly.
So as we're going through the Bobby Hebb catalog, and he didn't release a lot of music, so there's a ton of music on the box set. What about the Jack Bruce catalog? Is anyone re-releasing the albums with bonus tracks or demos or anything?
Well, it's kind of out of my hands. I mean, my stepmom, Margaret, is involved with his estate and all of that. And yes, I think there is some kind of deal in place with, I'm not sure who's doing it. Maybe Cherry Red. I'm not sure though. Certainly Warner Chappell, the publishers are involved. So yes, I think there are some things in the pipeline. I don't know whether you saw, they've recently found some unreleased footage of Lifetime on a German TV show called Beat Club. That just came out a few weeks ago, which was really interesting. So that was the Lifetime lineup with Tony Williams, Larry Young, my dad, and John McLaughlin. So yeah, things pop up like that from time to time. And also, yes, I think there will be some re-releases to keep the catalog moving. I don't know how much unreleased stuff there is. That's something my stepmother would know more about. I can't imagine there's too much unreleased stuff, because there are a lot. I think there are 14 solo albums or something like that that are already out there.
Now, looking at the Heavenly Cream, and the original title was different, right?
Cream Acoustic was the kind of working title, yeah. And then I believe it's a record label decision to call it Heavenly Cream. I don't know, maybe if they waited a few more years, everyone would be dead, and then they could call it, I don't know, Heavenly. Everybody's in Heaven Cream. I don't know. I'm being silly, but no, Heavenly Cream. It's kind of a play on words, and I guess because Ginger's not around anymore and Pete's not around anymore, and my dad, you know, the only guy that's left really is Eric. But Eric's not on the record, so, you know, in a way, it kind of makes sense to call it Heavenly Cream. But it was Cream Acoustic. That was what we were calling it all the way through the process of working on the project. Well,
when I see a name like Maggie Bell, and I saw her perform behind her Columbia album back in, again, the same year, I think that I saw the 73 when I was 19, Maggie Bell, she's on this record, and she's amazing. And how did that come about? How did Maggie get involved?
Well, I think Pete was friends with her, and my dad was friends with her over the years because obviously they're both from Scotland, my dad and Maggie. And Maggie works. She's still really active. She works a lot in Europe and Germany. I think she's based out of there quite a lot of the time. And yeah, she agreed to do it. I think Pete reached out to her, and they were friends. They were in touch. So it was just a question of scheduling, and she came in, and it was amazing. Yeah, we spent the day with her. She was amazing and lovely, and always, just a great, iconic voice, as you know. So it was great.
Yeah, not as well known in America.
A little bit of the Scottish connection. What's that? She's not so well known.
In America, even though she toured here and she was amazing, it's nice that she's on a record because I think she deserves more recognition as well.
Yeah,
and,
I guess it's funny how that works sometimes. That a lot of some artists don't break through in America, even though they deserve to. I mean, she's got such a great voice. She's kind of like the Scottish Janis Joplin or something, even though that's a silly thing to say. But in a sense, it's like she's got that kind of iconic soul.
Well, she did one of Joplin's songs on her Maggie Bell album.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, in America, Maggie, it's on my review. I reviewed it, and I know she did a Joplin tune. Like Genya Raven, they were there and they sounded like Janis, and the record labels wanted them to be Janis, but I don't think that these singers wanted that tag, respectfully, out of respect for Janis. I didn't know John Bonham had a sister.
Yes, well, she's much young. Obviously, she's much younger than him. She's great. Debbie's amazing. Yeah. And again, it's a bit like me. I guess if you're the relative of somebody that famous, you can sort of be a bit in the shadows, and it can be a bit of a challenge in many ways. But we're still here and we're still doing it. So there you go.
Have you ever heard of Tracy Bonham from Boston?
I have, yes.
I love Tracy.
Remind me who she is.
She had this great album, Second Wind, and I reviewed it for All Music, and I wrote 5,000 stories for them, in 9 years.
Wow.
But one of the editors was ripping at me because he goes, "You can't call Tracy's album a desert island disc." I said, "Well, to me it is." And they pulled that from my review. But what I want to tell you is, did you ever meet Denny Lane's ex-wife, JoJo Lane?
Well, no, but I actually do know Lane Hines, their son, who is a really talented guy. Lane is really talented. He lives in London, and he plays kind of old style. If you know about him, he plays like old style blues stuff.
Lane and Heidi Joe and Bozzy were family to me because JoJo was one of my best friends.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Well, I love Lane. He's a lovely guy. I don't know his sister so well, but I know Lane. In fact, I did get him on as a support act on a little tour I did in the UK, probably almost 10 years ago now. But he came on, did a few shows with us, and he was great. He's just such a unique person, and what he does as an artist is so unique. He should be much better known, for sure. But maybe he doesn't want to be. I don't quite know.
Lane has always been reserved, always. Even when he was, I mean, I knew these kids when they were like 8 and 9, and I took care of them when JoJo needed a babysitter. But two funny stories about.
Was she kind of a little stuff going on with her with addiction or something, or because I mean I'm always very open about these things. Like with my dad, obviously he had problems with addiction, which he's quite open about at certain points in life. I'm just trying to remember. I think Lane did tell me something, or somebody told me that
the alcohol killed her. The alcohol killed her.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd fly down.
I mean that can impact. like that, the confidence of somebody growing up around, because I grew up around a lot of that stuff, so I've had to work very hard to kind of release emotion around those things, which I have. I'm really liberated now, but I mean, I think there were times where it had the behaviors that surround people that are addicts in families can really have an impact on confidence and things like that. So I just wonder if that's anything to do with Lane's reservedness. But I'm not a psychoanalyst. So.
I'll give you two quick stories, though. You'll love this. So I was invited backstage to see Lou Reed because I'm a Lou Reed devotee. And
right.
And so Warner Brothers invited me back, George Skabitis, and I bring JoJo, but she was drinking too much at our studio. We had our own little studio, and the boys were giving her alcohol, and they shouldn't have, and they did, the band. And so she's now drunk in my car, you know, and so in front of me is Tracy Bonham, right? We're in line to meet Lou. And Lou had met me before, but, you know, he knew I was a big appreciator and all that. So I said, JoJo, have you ever met Tracy Bonham? And she grabs Tracy and says, Tracy, I knew your dad. It was hilarious, right? But then JoJo starts writing her book, and Ginger Baker wrote the backward. The forward was Rod Stewart. And Rod wrote You Wear It Well for her, and he wrote You Wore It Well then, JoJo, you wear it well now. Ginger, in the back of the book, you're going to love it. Ginger Baker just writes, no sane man would go near her. It was the back, and she loved it.
Brilliant.
So there are some of my stories. But I'm so glad you know Lane, and he's playing with his sister and her boyfriend, and Heidi. I put out two of their songs. She's amazing. So if you go to the house, 13A, you know where it is, and meet Heidi, and I think Lane is actually playing with them now on a new album they're cutting. She is brilliant.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the last time I bumped into Lane, he does little gigs with a guy I know called Stu Day. Do you know who that is? Stu Day.
No, I lost touch with Lane. I'm only really in touch with Heidi, his older sister.
Oh, okay.
He doesn't like email and stuff.
Yes, he does. Definitely is a kind of hard to pin down for sure. But he's a lovely guy. Like whenever I see him, he's really nice. So, you know.
Will you be touring behind this new album?
Definitely, yes. I'm talking to some agents. I mean, I'm on my own right now, just working on the music, not really doing much in the business, although I've just booked 4 little kind of showcase shows for January in the London area, like little, 200 capacity sort of showcasey type venues, just to start working the material. But I just, I want to go and talk to labels, and I'm talking to a couple of agents so far who seem interested. So yeah, it's just like putting it together and then if I get a label behind it, then I'll have advertising budgets. If not, then I'll come up with the money myself just to kind of see what I can do, But I think it's a pretty commercial record. I think it's got a lot going for it. It's not a jazz record. It's definitely a kind of got its own sound. It's a guitar-driven rock record. I would say it's probably an alternative rock record. Like, got its own sound world. It's not American rock. It's very much its own thing. But I think it's still commercial. So anyway, I don't know. Just going to see what I can make happen. But yes, ideally I'd be on the road by sort of September next year. Just build it all up and have say.
And would you be promoting like the Heavenly Cream as well, playing songs from that?
I don't think for this record, no. But I mean, I wouldn't be against doing some shows for that. I mean, it's really up to the record label what they want to do with the Heavenly Cream thing. Obviously it's challenging because we're not going to get Paul Rodgers or Joe Bonamassa, and Ginger's passed away and Pete's passed away. I think if Pete was still around, we could put something together around him. I could put something together around me if they wanted to do it. They haven't so far really talked to us about that. But it wouldn't be a problem at all to put a great band together and do some shows for sure. But I think they're just such separate things. I'm trying to get out there with my own music, as much as I love my dad and his achievements, before I'm an old man in a rocking chair, I want to get my own music out there and see if I can make something happen, because I think it's world class. I think what I've got, it's got great potential, but it's just getting the business infrastructure behind me so that I can get, well, what we started talking about, I don't even know how it works anymore.
No, and like you said about Lane Hines, he's such a great musician who's obscure. No one knows who he is out there.
Yeah.
And yet he really is gifted.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, but again, as you say, maybe it's if he doesn't have the drive to go and get a manager or to get a label involved that then put money behind him so that people talk about him. I mean, even just some of the UK publications like Blues Matters and for what he's doing, there are very specific paths to being better known. You go talk and get reviews and make a record and release it. And but I don't know whether he wants to do that. I don't know.
Well, what I saw Denny Lane perform with Steve Hawley. Now, Steve Hawley was the drummer for Wings on Back to the Egg.
I played with Steve. I played with Steve because I'm friends with John Paris. Do you know John Paris?
I think he was in Steve's band.
Yes. Well, John used to run a jam session at Lucille's next door to B.B. King's in New York City. And so every time I was in Manhattan, I'd go and sit in with them. So I met Steve a bunch of times, and I met May Pang, was one of the people that was always hanging around there as well. She's absolutely lovely. And so there was a little scene. Obviously, BB's is shut down now, and Lucille's is shut down. So I'm not sure that band's still happening, but John Paris ran that for years, that little jam thing, and Steve was always the drummer.
Now, have you seen the May Pang movie?
No, I haven't. She was talking about it on Facebook, but I haven't got around to see it yet. I think there was a showing in New York that she was talking about a few months ago. But I'd love to see it. I mean, she's such a great person. She actually came. Well, it's probably 5 years ago now, but I was doing a little gig in a place called the Troubadour in London, and she happened to be in town, so she came to the show. I haven't seen her since then, pre-pandemic. But yeah, that's quite a story, right? And actually, my dad is part of John's Lost Weekend. So there you go.
Well, Eric Taros did the movie. He worked on the Get Back movie, and his brainchild, he was really a big part of 8 Days a Week, that other movie. So he's most proud of this one. He lives like 3 cities away from me. He's a dear old friend of mine, 40 years now. So Eric was intensely involved in that, and the Blu-ray just came out, I guess, this week. But that's really, if you know May, it's really worth seeing.
Yeah, I'll
it's
try
great.
and get a copy of it. Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
But Steve Hawley. So Steve Hawley performed with Denny here in Boston. And I'm thinking, why doesn't he have the family? Why isn't Lane on guitar? Why isn't Heidi singing the McCartney tunes? Why, and to me, that would have been, with Steve Hawley and Denny Lane and Lane Hines and Heidi, that would have been, I think, a big news story and would get more people in the room. But it didn't happen.
Yeah, I don't know how close they are, to be honest. I just don't know. I mean, I met Denny in LA actually at a thing called Brit Week that I went to with a friend. I happened to be in LA to do a show, and they do this thing called Brit Week, which is like a celebration of British culture. And I went to one of the events, like a photo op type event, and Denny was there, so I kind of spent an hour with him chatting about the early days, because obviously he knew my dad. They all knew each other before they were anybody. My dad was in, the Alexis Corners, Blues Incorporated, then the Graham Bond organization, and Denny was touring. Maybe it was Moody Blues, or I can't remember. But they did a little tour with Chuck Berry, I think, as Graham Bond organization with Chuck Berry's backing band for a tour of the UK, probably 1964 or 5 or something like that. So so it was nice to meet Denny and sort of chat about those things a little bit. But I'm not sure how I'm not sure how in touch they are with.
Well, Denny stayed there for
Denny.
about a month. So he was at their home for about a month, and that's when I was hoping that he would like do something with them, but it never came to be. And that's life. I'm so glad you're working with your dad's material. And I got a question about Born Under a Bad Sign. Is that the only track Paul Rodgers is on?
I believe so. Yeah, I think so.
And did he pick it, or did you guys ask him to do Born Under a Bad Sign?
As far as I remember, we had a kind of master list of songs that we felt were important to do, and I think we kind of got most of them done. And I think it's a little, it's inevitable. These things are a little bit hierarchical. So you're starting with, okay, so Ginger's going to do it, and Joe Bonamassa's going to do it. So what should maybe we need to get them to do, because I think the deal was Joe would do the record to play with Ginger, because he played with Eric and he played with my dad, and I think he wanted to play with Ginger just to as something that he wanted to do, an enjoyable thing for him. So we had to have them together in the studio, and we might as well do one of the big songs in that sense. So we ended up doing Sunshine of Your Love. With Paul, he didn't actually come to Abbey Road with us at the same time, so that was recorded remotely, I believe. And I think we were just kind of giving people 2 or 3 songs as options, and then they kind of chose which one they'd like to do. So it might have been partly Paul's decision as well. I don't know that for sure, but I can imagine it might have been enjoyable for him to do that song, because it's such an early, it's a song that they would have all known as they were starting out. So yeah, it's an interesting question. But he agreed to do it. So that's the important thing.
No, it's a great record. I only have 2 minutes. I only have 2 minutes left. My show's 55 minutes.
Okay.
So we could do 2 or 3 or 4 if you want. But anything, anything you want to talk about, and I'd love to have you back when your record's out. So you got an open invite.
Thank you so much. Yeah. No,
when your record comes out, we can go track. I do something called going track by track, and we can talk about every track on your CD.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I'm really excited about it, because I think this one's been a long time coming, and it's called Fake Humans and Real Dolls. So it's kind of a play on words, but it's also just looking at what we're all collectively going through on this planet, whether subjectively as individuals, but also, I just feel, whether it's my own spiritual journey, and I'm at a kind of crossroads myself, and I'm really evolving at a kind of exponential rate, really, really kind of huge growth going on within me spiritually, emotionally. I practice transcendental meditation, talking about the Beatles. So I practice this meditation technique that has a huge impact on my perception and my sense of consciousness and awareness. And so, I'm trying to capture these feelings and emotions on this record, but I'm also trying to express and talk about what we're all going through collectively, with the narratives that are going on this planet right now, with the hatred and the prejudice and the kind of control mechanisms, and people getting cancelled because they say the wrong thing, or just all these things that are going on, without taking sides, because I don't really think, where I'm seeing it from, I think we're all like little children in the playground, all kind of being nasty to each other instead of actually just being loving. I guess I'm a hippie at heart. I just believe in love, the power of love. But we're living in a world that's greedy and hateful and murderous, but it's just, I feel like we're in a transition to this kind of place where it's understood that we don't have to be horrible to each other. That actually, isn't it a much better world when we're actually just really kind and loving and caring and accommodating and allowing and oh, okay, you're different from me, that's cool, that's fine, you can be different from me, that's all right. So it's just, I feel like the whole world, we're right at this point, where we have this opportunity. Which way are we going to go? Are we going to go into annihilation, or are we going to go into transhumanism and get rid of humans and just have artificial intelligence? Or are we going to have it? I feel it's a really interesting time. So yes, this is what this record is attempting to explore.
I'm talking to multi-instrumentalist Malcolm Bruce, playing piano with Maggie Bell, playing bass on a track with Paul Rogers. Amazing, just totally amazing, and lovely. It sounds incredible. It's a great sounding record. It's a wonderful project. I'm so honored to talk to you because I love your dad's work, as you know, and I like this a real lot.
Well, Joe, thank you so much for taking the time to support this project, and we're really proud of it. Our little part in continuing the tradition of this great music that we all share. So really appreciate it. Thank you. And
thank you very much for your time, Malcolm.
Thanks, Joe. Well, we'll speak again soon, yeah. I hope.
I hope so too. Bye-bye.
All right, man. Take it easy.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Joe Viglione.